Welcome to episode 2 of the Mount Rushmore Show. Today we're going to be featuring left-handed pitchers. Jason's going to explain some of the rules. We are co-hosting, and this week we have a guest with us.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. We're excited to do episode 2 here, left-handed pitchers, as Aaron said. Basically, what this is much like our inaugural episode, it's the top 4 players in our collection of any particular topic. This topic happens to be left-handed pitchers. So we've picked our top 4 left-handed pitchers based on either stats, who we like. It could be anything, but you have to have substantial reasoning. Maybe it's your favorite player to collect, and that's enough reason for me. But we're going to go through them one by one. We do have a guest on, and Aaron will bring him in a minute, and then we're going to let the guests kind of show their first card, and we'll rattle off. And if we have a matching cards of the same player, we'll kind of show those, and we'll do a couple honorable mentions. Very loose as usual, but going to keep it fun and show a lot of cool cards. So
absolutely. All right, well, let's bring in our guest. We have with us this time Josh from Vintage Card Wonderland, with an awesome channel that is growing quickly, and really excited to get to hang out with him tonight.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Awesome. Hey Josh, how you doing?
Jason, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you got the homework, and we were prepped for this. So you've got your guys, right?
I got my guys. That's
So
right.
how much research did you have to do? Did you do a lot?
I felt like I was back in college again, preparing the term paper. No, I definitely did some research. My knowledge, I find that my knowledge of statistics, needs to continue to be beefed up, and certainly not probably like on the level of you guys. So diving into some of the stats and even trying to figure out, all right, why is this guy a little better than this guy, just from a numbers standpoint, I think was helpful for me and gave me a greater appreciation for some of the guys that I already had in my collection, about, a greater appreciation for their historical significance and their statistics. So for me, that was a big thing about researching my top guys. So
that's awesome. And I'll openly tell you, Josh, I am not a stats guy. So I when I do my research, I have notes here, and I'll rattle them off. I am not a stats guy. I can kind of, when we pick a topic, when Aaron and I pick a topic, I can kind of think in my head of who I'm going to pick, and depending on how difficult the topic is. And this one's a hard one, because there's a lot of fringe guys. There's a lot of guys, if you look at the numbers, one guy might be the same as the other guy, and you got to leave, and you can only pick 4. So that's what makes this topic fun. And I think the whole Mount Rushmore series, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, that's the whole point of it, right? Showing these cards and talking about these players that people might not know about or know the stats.
Yeah, well, and I love the idea of, fortunately reaching out to Josh. We've been texting with each other forever and tagging each other on Facebook, and some of the cards I've picked up are because of Josh's keen eye and tagging me. But, just making sure that we're featuring, your collection and what you want to highlight. I know you're kind of, at this point, known as Venezuelan Josh, probably, because you're highlighting that set in such a awesome way.
Yeah.
But you picked this, so this is really cool that we get to see some of the other stuff you've got.
I definitely love the Venezuelans, but I definitely have other stuff too. And so, I'm excited to share some of that. It'll be absolutely great. And to see some of your guys' stuff, which I know is great. So,
well, shoot, let's kick it off. Josh, I guess show us
all right,
one of your 4.
Okay, one of my 4, which I suspect is probably going to be on at least 1 or 2 of your lists. So this player was born in Buffalo, New York in 1921, and was the father of a semi-pro. His father was a semi-pro who taught him how to play baseball as a teenager, and then went into the minors in the 40s. And in 1942, he was called up to the Boston Braves and did okay, not great, sent back down to the minors, where he dominated and did pretty well. But at the end of 1942, he enlisted in the Army, got sent to Oklahoma. So one of the really interesting things about this player is his military history. We know a lot of very famous players like Ted Williams and other people that went in the military, but he went into I believe the Army Corps of Engineers. And in 1945, he was sent to Europe to back up the troops after D-Day, worked his way east through France into Germany, he was grazed by 2 bullets in the Battle of the Bulge, and that earned him a Purple Heart. And then he was seriously injured in fighting in Western Germany on the Rhine River. And for this, he got a Congressional Medal of Honor, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart, and a Presidential Medal. So he is actually the most decorated Major League Baseball player who ever served in World War II, which I did not know before this. So
That's some heavy stat. You went deep.
Yeah,
You went deep,
not
Josh.
into baseball stats yet. So you guys can probably figure out who he is, but came back to the Braves in 46 midseason, did well and never looked back. This player is this card, Warren Spahn. One of the interesting things about that military history, which I thought was really interesting, we talk about a lot of players who lost time to the war and who what could have been in regards to their stats. Well, Warren Spahn kind of looked at it differently. He said actually serving in the military in the war made him the player he was, as far as his resilience, his grit, his determination, his strength. So for that reason, maybe he never would have been the player he was. And you could maybe argue that about someone like Ted Williams or other people that have lost time to that part of history. But in the other thing I was thinking about is, I mean, to be alive during World War II is such one of the biggest, moments in history. To think baseball on that scale, when you're talking about something like the threat to the world, it just must have felt what it must have felt like to these players, and what a lot of them felt their duty probably was to kind of preserve freedom and protect the world against evil. So I thought that's just an interesting thing to get in the mind of someone like Warren Spahn during that time when he left. But getting into his stats, so he has one of the highest WARs. He's a WAR of about 100.1. A total wins loss record of 363 over 245. And he holds the major league record for total wins. So for that, he deserves to be on the list in my mind. He had an ERA of 3.09 and an ERA plus of 1.19, one of the highest. Strikeouts of 2583, played in 21 seasons, and played for the Boston Braves and Milwaukee Braves, and a 17-time All-Star, won 20 or more games in more than 13 seasons, 57 Cy Young Award winner, 3-time runner-up. And this is when only one was given for both leagues. So that was a big thing. And then at the time of his retirement in 1965, he held the record for the most strikeouts by a left-handed pitcher at that time. And he was elected to the Hall of Fame in 73 with 82% of the votes. So he certainly has a very worthy CV to be on this list. So I can share a couple of cards I have of him, and if you guys, if he's also on your list. But this is one of the cards I love. I love his 52 tops.
52. Beautiful
color
card
on that image is just a gorgeous card, very affordable, considering most 52 tops like a Maze or a Mantle or a Campanella. But those will set you back. This will set you back like a couple $100. That's a great one. Another one of my favorites is the 49 Bowman. I've always been one big on color. I like that you can see his nice high leg kick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice bold red color. It's a great one. And then another one, which is, I like the 60 top set. He just kind of has a weird look on his face. I like the colors, but not so much the portrait of him in this one. But I think 60 tops is a great set. So that's a decent example of that. And then I couldn't not show a Venezuela card, right? So you got to show his
awesome
67 Retirado, which is, I think, a fantastic card as well.
It's an awesome set. That is an awesome.
It's a great set, and you can kind of get away with getting a lot of Hall of Famers in that one set. So I kind of am able to cheat a little bit at having those guys. So those are the only four that I own. I really want his 49 Leaf. Is the
great card. Great card.
I don't love the Bowman, the black and white Bowman. I know some people love the 48 Bowmans, but for me, I just the black and white and the image are not my favorite. But I get why people want the Musial and the Spawn in that set. Just for me, the Leaf is just, the aesthetics of it is just way greater for me. So that's my next kind of on my short list. But yeah,
I actually enjoy the 48 Bowman. I like him a lot. His 48 Bowman
yeah,
is much to be desired.
right.
I think he looks like Big Bird.
He does look like Big Bird. I
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah.
I
But
know. I know.
yeah, I love the Leaf. I think it's one of his best looking cards. I love the 50 Bowman, the 50 and 51 Bowman. I think are phenomenal.
Yes.
I guess to kind of keep in, I don't have to rattle off stats. And this is the fun thing about this is I was talking to Aaron before you jumped on, Josh, and I said, I never realized how few cards I have of players, particularly pitchers, until I did this. And I only had one item for this guy, and it's the same guy, and it's Warren Spahn. It's my 64 Aurora Vision record. And this is the only item I have of his, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to rectify that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saving for other things right now. So I am building this set. I'm actually three records away, actually one record away, and then two variants away from building the set. But much like you had said, Josh, 363 wins for a lefty. All the stats I was going to rattle off, you rattled off. The longevity was there. The one thing that you did mention is it was this. He felt it was the service that made him gritty. He put up such insane stats that if he were to do that and still play while he was while he served for 3 years, what would his numbers been? I mean, it's insane during peak time too. So I will also say this: he goes down as having one of the ugliest cards. His 65 is brutal. So it's an absolutely brutal card. He looks like my grandfather.
Yeah.
But other than that, this was the one, and I'll keep it short, and you can go, Aaron. This was the only player that I only had one item of, and it was Spawn, and that'll change very quickly. But I just have other fish I want to fry before I start picking up more in Spawn.
Sure.
Yeah, I think he was one of my, not that we're ranking him, but he was one of the two that was immediately a lock for sure. So,
right.
The other thing that's interesting, you mentioned the Cy Young in 57, I think he was 35, because the award didn't exist until he was in his 30s. The fact that he had 5 top 3 finishes.
Yeah.
And then I want to say it was his stats I was clicking back through and, doing the deep dive. I think he had 2 years that he was the highest voted MVP pitcher. So you have to assume he would have been the Cy Young winner those 2 years too.
Right,
so
right.
Had 3 Cy Youngs plus all these like seconds and thirds. And so monster career, just fantastic. Right. But I will show, so since that's been mentioned,
there it is.
List.
Man.
That's a good looking 2.
I mean, that's a fantastic example. Wow.
Why is that a 2?
Why is that a 2? It's right. It looks like a 7.
Let me see. Yeah. It actually, I mean, you say that kind of in jest, but it actually does look pretty respectable. Even the back's pretty reasonable.
Wow. That card is very hard to find centered in the registration between not having him look like he's got bloodshot eyes and having that color.
Right.
You don't see cards like that. You just don't.
I think Greg, Midlife Sports Cards, bought that at Strongsville when we were there last year. That was one of his pickups.
And I think I've had that since, I've had that for 15 years. So I got that. Yeah, that's been with me for a few minutes.
You got to show that one more time. That's such a beautiful card for people at home.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a better card than that? That's fantastic.
One of his best by far.
Gorgeous. I love it.
I like the 3 that I pulled 4, but I won't duplicate showing that one. I knew you were going to show that. I was like, I got to pull the Venny as well. But, the other 2 I think rank up there too for just pretty Warren Spahn cards. So
yes,
that's a monster.
That's a tough one.
I knew you had it. I knew that was getting shown.
Yeah, tip top. So this one actually, I think the front is decent. There is creases and stuff. The back's got some goober to it, but overall, I mean that's solid enough. It does,
look, he's young there too.
He looks so young. Yeah,
he looks like a baby.
The pop on that card must be crazy low. No.
20s, 30s, maybe something like that. It's not a lot of them.
Yeah, that's great.
And then the last one, I just thought for the image.
Yes.
I've shown those before, the spick and span.
Yeah.
The leg is like coming off the card.
Yeah.
It's great. The high leg kick.
Yeah.
So are you guys familiar with Matt, the card story, THA? Big Aaron Spawn collector. Yeah, he's big into that. The first time I ever saw that, I think it was before you even showed it, Aaron. I saw it, he showed it. And I'm like, oh, that is cool.
That's cool.
He has like the die cut.
Yes, he does. The bigger one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've seen that.
I mean, we talk about all these players, like for how great as he was, he's a very affordable person to collect.
Yes.
If you want to get stuff in like a low grade, you can get some low grade, high eye appeal stuff and get a standard, run for a reasonable amount, considering how great he was and maybe how, I guess I don't want to say underappreciated. I think he's maybe appreciated, but the market that had he been a New York Yankee, right? It would have been totally different conversation.
I think for this particular topic, that almost goes for all pitchers, right? I mean, they always come in at premium. That's the hobby in general. You know, if they're not producing offense, you can usually pick up. Now you start to get into your pre-war, and they get it. But even compared to the Cobbs and the Steelers, and they come at a premium. They're just cheaper. So, if you're looking to get into Hall of Famers pre-war, that's maybe a route to go if you want to save some money with some amazing stories. I know you're a Mordecai Brown guy. And a lot of cool stuff out there. So
sure.
Yeah. And Spawn too. I mean, besides the war aspect, it just sounds like he's a world-class human. So
right. Absolutely.
I always kind of dig, and it's nice to see the family side, the teammate side, the just generous side. Like no one said anything bad about him ever. So
right. No, that's an awesome point.
The other thing, I mean, we'll, I'm sure, learn this with more of the ones we show, but the wear and tear of the body, right? So these guys, how many innings they pitched throughout a season versus nowadays, you could never recreate that.
Yeah.
Because you have pitch counts and you pull a pitcher after the 5th or 6th inning, you have how many relievers and closers. It's just you're never going to recreate those kind of stats of some of these guys. You're just never going to, which is just the way baseball's played today.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So should we swing it the other way? Aaron, you kick off 2, and then we'll work, like I'm sitting in the middle here when I'm looking on screen, and then we'll work that way.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'll go with my other absolute slam dunk. And this one I think was 0% debate for me. There's one player that's known for having an amazing 4 or 5 year run, and I will hint that I did not include him on the Mount Rushmore, which I think many people do. I know. That's.
I'll go. No, finish. I love this.
I will just say that the amazing thing. So I don't think you can compare generations. ERAs, different things. So I kind of look at like WAR. I look at ERA plus just because it takes away a little bit of the live ball, dead ball, factors. This player has 2 separate 5-year runs in his career that has a higher WAR than I think any other left-handed pitcher I can find. That's insane. So if you said,
I know who it is.
If you said, pick a 5-year run that is the most elite, he finishes 1st and 2nd. That's like the Wilt Chamberlain stats and stuff with scoring. Right. It's insane. So if you know who it is, then you know who it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is absolutely Lefty Grove. So Lefty Grove, just for stat wise, 106.8 WAR, a 301.41 career, 306 ERA, 2-time Triple Crown, 9-time ERA champ, 7-time strikeouts. Love this. In 19, by the way, that was a W517. So that's, 1931. So he's with the A's there. In 1930, he won the Triple Crown. So ERA, wins, and strikeouts, and led the league in saves.
Yep.
That's not easy to do.
Won the MVP in 31, right? I think he won the MVP in 31.
Yeah. I think those 2 years he was like 59-9 for those 2 years or something.
Right.
The crazier thing I just listened to, doing research, I listened to an hour-long interview with him from like the 70s. And it's recorded. It's on YouTube, so maybe I should.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
It's really neat. But he was talking about his time in Baltimore when it was considered the minor leagues, but it was really like an independent league. So he was paid just like an MLB player. He said the Baltimore team actually played against the A's and won several times in exhibition games. So they were legit. The reason he stayed with them is he wasn't released from his contract until he was sold for enough. So until they were offered enough money for him to be sold. So he didn't start in the majors till he was 25. His record with Baltimore, he had over 100 wins with Baltimore.
Right.
At the age of like 21 and 24. So I mean, it's insane what he could have done. So he could have been another 400 win pitcher.
Yeah, pretty tough not to put a guy on the list whose nickname is Lefty, right? I mean, that's kind of, and there's a couple of them, but he's the one.
Yeah, so I pulled a few that are in my favorite list. So
I love it.
That's pretty.
Yeah, the 33
DeLong. Red on that really pops. That's gorgeous.
These are pretty darn cool. I'm a fan of the DeLongs big time. And then I wanted to pick. Got a few friends that are Red Sox fans, and I know they'd be offended if I didn't pull some Red Sox stuff. So I figured I'd pull the classic Diamond Stars card number 1.
That's great.
That's a tough one just because it's number 1 in the set. And I'm working on that Diamond Stars set. And then this one I've shown, and I feel like that's just kind of a prize of the collection at this point.
Cool.
That's recent, right? Correct, Aaron? That's recent for you?
I showed it recently. I've had it for a little bit.
Okay.
What is that? Is that O-Pee-Chee? What is that?
Yeah, it's a 37 O-Pee-Chee.
Yeah.
When did O-Pee-Chee start getting made? Like what's the earliest year?
I think that's it. I believe 37 is for baseball.
Maybe as labeled that way. Yeah, it might be.
I believe that's it. And
they were
think
cool.
There were some from the 40s, if I'm not mistaken, too, as well. Again, this is where we would need like a Mangini or someone to correct me if I'm wrong, but they can correct us in the comments. So I thought 37 was the first baseball. And guys, if you're watching and I'm incorrect, put it in the comments because I love to learn. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're deep diving on stats and pitchers and triple crowns and stuff. We didn't deep dive on the card collection, maybe quite as hard. So, but yeah, it grooved me a lot.
It's funny. I wanted to add him. I didn't have any cards for Lefty. So because of this, and because we're doing this with enough notice, I was able to pick up something. Right. Nice. So I've got a couple. So this is 76 Topps, Sporting News All-Time All-Stars, Lefty Grove, and then I picked up 2023. Platinum.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
Because there's just no way he cannot be on this list, right? So as I was digging through stats and combing through this, because we've known about it, I was nervous these weren't going to get here in time. They just got here, and they're for all of those who you know, Aaron just showed some really big cards, some beautiful cards. These were like $1 a piece.
Yeah,
legitimately $1. So I've said it. I've actually done a video on it. If you want to dabble in vintage and you want to learn about players, but you don't want to pay for the actual playing days, this is a route to go. It was literally, I think this card was $1.10. So
gorgeous card.
And it's beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful card.
Yeah.
But there's, you rattled off all the stats already, Aaron, so I don't need to. He was my 1/1A. So and if I had to rank them, Spawn was my 3. So my 1A has not been shown yet, but he was probably my 1.
Well, I think since you threw my favorite off the list, I'm putting him at 16. So he was higher until I found out what you did, Aaron. And
I must tell you this, Josh.
Unacceptable. You can't.
I must tell you this, Josh. I'm probably doing the same thing, Aaron.
Okay.
Too, so.
No, he was on my list for sure. I mean, just for what he did, for his overall, I mean, highest career WAR, ERA plus, 2 World Series championships, and he had a run where he went 108-27 in a 4-year span. 9 ERA championships, 7 strikeout titles, consecutive strikeout titles.
Yeah.
8 20-win seasons. One season he went 31-4.
Right.
And then he probably, I don't think the Cy Young Award existed then. No. He been, they project him that you would have been maybe a 5 to 6 time Cy Young Award winner if they had been available. So he's very worthy. I have his prettiest card with his nicest, obviously, prettiest image by far. Oh,
that's an awesome card.
It is an awesome card. It's got a lot of character to it, but it's I don't know. It's interesting.
I love it. So was he on your top 4, Josh?
Yes, he was,
okay.
for sure. He
Just
was on my top 4. Well deserving of being on Mount Rushmore for sure. But this is the only one it's a non-playing days card, but it's the only one I own. So
yeah, I was scrambling to buy dollar cards. So
yeah,
because there's no way I could.
I was thinking like something. I'm like, I can't leave him off. He's too good.
Right.
You know what's funny too, Jason? I would say my hope for young collectors to eventually catch on to vintage is what you showed.
Yep.
I have a lot of those too, the 2021s, 2022s of, Gehrig and Lefty Grove and Ty Cobb. And it's cool to get, the stories, the stats, and really cool images. But you're hoping the 10-year-olds are reading that and thinking like, once I get, adult money.
I actually did a video on it, I don't know however long ago, and it was non-playing day cards. And it was just simply to say, guys, you can pick these up for 50, you can go to a card show. That's in a 50 cent bin somewhere. And you can load up on, Stadium Club Willie Mays is. And now they're doing, Topps is getting a little wiser with it. Like in their later runs, they're doing short prints. So there's like short print Campanellas and short, so you can still, if you want it, maybe those are $5 or $6, but I mean, if you can't afford a Mays playing days card, if you're 10 years old, and you can't afford one, maybe that's your big card, and they're still cool. And like you said, read the backs of those, learn about these players. For Halloween this year, we had a lot of trick-or-treaters here, and we have a young guy who lives on the block. He's playing baseball right now. I think he's 9. And I always see him playing baseball, so I know his dad, and I invited him over. They looked at my cards, and I gave him a box of cards. And I gave him a lot of modern because he knows those, but I slipped in a 68 playing game card of Hank Aaron. And I said, here's a Hank Aaron. And I said, this is older than me. And I said, when you come back to my house, I want to know what this man did that was so significant in baseball, because he's 9. Like like Hank Aaron is a new name to him. Like for us, that's just normal. But he didn't even. He's like, yeah, I think I've heard of him. I'm like, well, when you come back to the house, I want to know what he did in baseball, right? And came back last night and he told me he passed Babe Ruth with home runs. I'm like, that's right, good job. That's
great. So you've imprinted that memory on him and maybe inspired him to be a vintage collector. Like if you don't do that, there isn't a future in the hobby if we don't inspire that in young people.
I will always give the kids modern because that's what they like. That's who they know. But I always slip. I sent a bunch of cards out to a young kid family friend kind of deal, and all modern. And some of it was modern football, but I slipped in a 72 Willie Mays, and I'm like, here, understand who this guy is, because he's a big deal. So it's fun stuff. Yeah.
Wasn't alive when Lefty Grove played but the history of these players and, the time when they lived and the kind of social political landscape, the history that was going on at that time is just it's a different feel to me than baseball and modern sports nowadays, where it's so commercialized and so kind of at a distance from the fans and the collectors. But back then it was it's much more intimate back then than it is now. And so keeping that history alive, to me, I feel more of a connection to that than I do with modern players and modern cards. It just doesn't have the same meaning to me. But
I think most vintage collectors will tell you that's exactly right. And that's why, I didn't see half of these guys play. But that, for what you just said, is why I collect them. So
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
All right. So what are we up? Number 3.
We're at number 3. Yeah. So far we're right.
Should I start?
Yeah, you're
start.
Yeah.
All right. So this was my 1 or 1A kind of guy. So Lefty was probably my 1. He's the first one I thought of. First one I came to when I was rattling off stats. And I'll just show this. I've shown this on my channel a couple times. But that's my 67 Steve Carlton. 23 years in the majors, a 90.2 WAR, 3.22 ERA, 329 wins, one ERA title, and 4 Cy Youngs. I think he somewhat gets overlooked sometimes. There it is. There's the camera moving on me. I think he sometimes gets overlooked based on the pitchers of that era. You know, Nolan Ryan, Seaver. Here's a 75 with him and Nolan on it. I have more of his cards. I only took out a few because I didn't want to start digging through sets. There's an 85. This is a great one, which I've shown on the channel a couple times. This is a Slurpee disc, the lenticular. So you've got Tom Seaver, and if you tilt it, you got Nolan Ryan, and if you tilt it the other way, you got Steve Carlton. So
that's cool.
That I actually pulled from a Slurpee cup when I was a kid. So
that's awesome.
But the stats are there. Long career. He was 1A. You know, if lefties won, he was 1A to me. Warren was 2, and you know, then there's my third, if you will. But I think Carlton is definitely deserving of being on that list. Funny, if we start talking about other players, I might jump in and do some comparisons because his numbers are very similar to someone else that I don't have on the list. So, but we'll get into that later.
I think I know who it is.
I think you know who it is too. That's why. And probably that person. We'll wait till we get to that point. That person would have hit my list had I had a card, but I don't. So.
Okay.
All right. Who's up? Who's going? Which way are we going?
Josh, did you have Carlton on your Mount Rushmore?
I don't own any Steve Carlton cards, so he certainly would be worthy of being on that list. I just, for me, I didn't have as big of a connection to him in the market he played in growing up, but certainly very impressive stats. But he's not on my list. But very worthy.
I like that. I like that. I like that we're not all the same. I want to see players.
I mean, what would be the fun in that, right?
Right, exactly. That's right.
We have 2 right answers, and then we have some discrepancies. So he was in my 4th slot as a lock. And then as I started digging and researching, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a little open-minded, and I think I'm going to keep him out of the 4th slot. But I did pull some of his cards. His rookie is really affordable.
Yes, it is. I was at that. I was at a show, Aaron, not too long ago. I thought, did I text you? I went with Steve from Vintage on Vintage, and we found a booth. The guy's in Minnesota, and he's going to be at the National, and had just tons of the mid 60s rookie cards in several different grades, and so affordable. And I was just looking for something else at that moment in time, but I'm like, I could pick up that. I could pick up a better Fergie Jenkins. I have a Jenkins and Raleigh Fingers and all that stuff. But his stuff is affordable, and his rookie card is as well.
It is, yeah, and just a couple other ideas. So that's
in
the 71 O-Peachy.
Oh, fantastic!
What is the back of the 71 O-Peachies? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel the backs being super cool.
Yeah,
cooler than the tops.
Just different enough. And when you get these, and this is still not expensive, even though it's a 6 and it's a 71, like that's still not an expensive card. And the other thing I'll show, he's quirky. If you do some deep dive, and that's probably one of the reasons I bumped him out of number 4, he's got some reputation for not necessarily being the guy.
He's a curmudgeon. He's a curmudgeon.
and there's some questionable things that may or may not have been said by him. So he may not be the person we want on our Mount Rushmore, but the player maybe. But he was a pretty generous signer. So I have a couple of his autographs. I agree, amazing player, way underappreciated. Probably what also hurt him is he played for Cleveland, White Sox, Cardinals, Phillies. Like, he was not, chunk of his career was definitely
on your list, Aaron?
He'd be honorable mention. I moved him off the list. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then you got one of you. Let's go, Josh.
Okay. All right. This guy is maybe off your guys' list, but I need to talk about him. He's too important. Okay. So this player only pitched for 12 seasons didn't truly find his groove until the last 5 or 6. So just to give you a kind of a comparison from 55 to 60, he had a 4.10 ERA. He had a 22.5% strikeout rate, 13.4% bases on ball rate, and a 6.7 WAR. From 61 to 66, his ERA, on the other hand, was 2.19 with a 26.5% strikeout rate, 6.4% base on ball rate, and a 46.4 WAR. So he burned bright for a short period of time. So his last 6 seasons, I think, are worthy of discussing because that's really where he shined. He made the All-Star team every year, those 6 seasons. He led the National League in innings twice, complete games twice, shutouts 3 times, ERA 5 times, WHIP 4 times, strikeouts 4 times, strikeout rate 5 times, hits per 9 innings 5 times, and strikeout to base on ball ratio 3 times. As a career, he had a WAR of 48.9, total record of 165 over 87, losses, ERA of 2.76, 2,396 strikeouts, a WHIP of 1.106, and an ERA plus of 131. Other highlights of this player: one of only 11 pitchers in Major League history to claim at least 3 Cy Young Awards, and only one to do so in an era where only one was awarded. So in 63, he was also the NL MVP, and in 65 and 66, I believe, were the years. And he finished 3rd in 64. But he was the first pitcher to win in back-to-back Cy Young Awards in back-to-back years. He also had, this is a pretty amazing stat, 4 no-hitters in the span of barely more than 3 years, which is unbelievable to think about. And the only pitcher to throw one no-hitter in 4 consecutive seasons. Postseason, very successful, 8 career playoff appearances, including 7 starts, through 57 innings with a .95 ERA, struck out 61 batters through 4 complete games. And when the games that he pitched, his team won 3 of 4 World Series, in which he pitched 59, 63, and 65.
So you're talking about Wilbur Wood then?
Yes. No. Exactly. Okay, well, I'm almost done. World Series MVP in 63 and 65. And this player also in 65 famously sat out of Game 1 of the World Series in observance of the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Post-playing days, he hung out. He retired early at age 30. First ballot Hall of Famer, elected with 86.9% of the vote. Was elected at age of 36. One of the youngest. He may have been at the time the youngest inductee at Hall of Fame history at the time. And obviously his career was cut short by severe arthritis. And the also known by the nickname left arm of God, not left hand of God, as I'd said in a couple of my videos. But this player is none other than Sandy Koufax.
Ooh, beautiful.
Standard.
Beautiful.
I love his 55, his rookie card.
Yeah.
This is a tough one just because of all the print defects and centering issues that these always have.
That is centered beautifully.
I found a nice copy. I actually got it from, shout out to Ash, who always has the greatest stuff.
Yes.
I had to have this one when I saw it, but I'd been looking for a nice copy for a while. So
was that at a show, Josh, or did you do it on Facebook?
It was on Facebook, actually.
Yeah, he does a lot of deals on Facebook.
I saw it, and I'm like, had him send me a couple of pictures, and he's like, one of the nicest for the grade that he'd seen, and he was right, for sure. He didn't disappoint.
That's beautiful.
In hand. So that was a big pickup a little over a year ago. And then some of his other standard issues. Let's go to a big fan of the 56.
Yes.
Great card. That's another really, 56 is such a great set.
It's my favorite set. It is my favorite set.
Yeah. So many iconic players and beautiful cards in that set. 58, another not my favorite card of his, but I love this 58 set. It's got a lot of wonderful cards in it. I love the color on this.
Yep.
And then 60.
Nice.
Great.
It's a great card. One of the few cards where he's not wearing a hat that I enjoy, because I'm not a big fan of non-hats.
Yep. I like that one.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorites of his, I love the 59 set.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just gorgeous set all around. So many great cards in that set in colors. So
Probably my second favorite set.
Yeah.
The 50s.
great one. And then let's pivot to Benny's.
Nice.
Here's a
62.
Benny
Wow.
with the Spanish back.
Yeah.
He has he's got a couple of, I don't have all his Vennies. I'm missing a couple of his. I think he has a 66 and I'm missing his
Aaron's flipping.
I think I'm missing his Aaron's just itching. You're itching over there. He's got every card. He's got like 6 of every one of these.
No, I don't.
One that you don't have yet.
It's a monster.
That's a great card. That's a great card.
That's one of the favorite cards in my set. I just love that set.
What's the grade on that?
It's a 9.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the only one above a 3,
it's a
probably.
1. High for 1. It's got a little bit, if you look at the back, it's got a little bit
Okay.
that came out of the album or something.
Yeah,
Right.
gotcha.
You can read the number and the text and stuff. So I think a couple years back, Heritage had a 7 that they auctioned off. That was a big card. That was
Right.
a big one. So I'd like to complete his run. I think I need his what's the Benny the year with the black backs? What year is that, Aaron?
That 4?
I have this card. Is it
64?
64, yeah.
Yeah, I need a 64 and a 66 Benny. I'm still missing, and it's 59, which is really, really hard. A very low pop card, and it's actually even hard to tell it's even a Benny or a US type because it's still got the US trademark on it.
Yeah.
And so you really got to have it in hand to know. And so there's a lot of risk in even getting that one. So
That's why I like the 64s, because you can tell.
the 64s are easy. Like
I
you just
love
turn
it.
it over.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so, and the 66s are, pretty straight. They have the salmon back, but still those are a little trickier, but the lack of gloss is usually helpful. But I can tell that Aaron is itching over there to show some of
Yes,
his.
he's next.
No,
So-
He's got
Only because I'm holding the darn thing.
That's
So
gorgeous.
we've talked about that. So yeah, I mean, I did pull him because I knew I had to see that big card of yours. I mean,
That's
that's
one of my favorite US tops and Benny's that he has. I love the image on that card.
yeah. I think it's cool. And honestly, I mean, I'll go quick because he's an honorable mention. He doesn't make my list, but
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I pulled his rookie is
Yeah.
epic and classic.
Beautiful card.
This other one I've shown a few times. It's one of my favorite cards that exists. I just think that's the coolest.
Are those the bell? Is that the bell or the
That's the Morel Meats.
Morel Meats? Okay. Because he's got a couple bell cards too that are pretty cool.
After
Yeah, I think that was the one Mangini
Yeah.
showed one, and I said, well, I couldn't tell which one it was, so I showed like all 3 of them.
Right, right. I
That's
think that's
right.
where I saw him with you. I'm like, oh, I got to get one of those.
Yeah. The battles between you guys are epic. I love watching those. It's so great.
That's
Going head to head.
so so crazy kind of him to call out a little guy that's
Apart
so.
from the little guy, believe me, you got a spectacular collection. I actually saved those very cards to my search list in eBay after you had your episode, after you and John had your episodes, because I'm like, those are fantastic cards.
They are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're fun. Yeah, they're tough to find, but they're not crazy expensive. They're just tough to find.
Yeah.
And he's an honorable mention for you then, correct?
He is. And, a guy I don't have a card of that I thought was a really good comp, that after I started looking at like their careers, their stats, the length of the career, everything else, that I feel like this guy got blown off the Hall of Fame list immediately, was Johan Santana.
Oh, really?
If you comp them,
Numbers are similar?
Very. I mean, 2 signings for Santana, 3 ERA titles, 51.7 career WAR. So he's like, a few ahead of Koufax. He's 136 ERA plus, so he's slightly ahead. K rate barely below, walk rate a little bit lower. I mean, they're very similar. And in like 12-year career, he had like a decade of dominance, and then he was out, and then he came back and was like 4-5 and couldn't recover and retired. But
so you did a deep dive, and that's actually interesting. That's really interesting.
Well, my theory on the Koufax situation is, imagine if his front half and his back half of his career had been flipped, right? We probably wouldn't be having the same conversation about him. We, as a society, we love it when someone goes out on top, right? Because of the potential, right? So he went out, he had an epic run, and then he's like, I'm out. For good reason. He left with very bad arthritis. He pitched, long games and many innings, and really just had to decide, am I going to continue to trash my body, or am I going to have a quality of life? And he made a really tough decision that at the time was probably a very wise one, but people couldn't wrap their head around because of all that like untapped potential that they saw in him, because he went out at such heights. But because of that, we have the ability to like fantasize about what could have been. Right. And for that very reason, he lives on this Mount Rushmore that he could never be knocked off of, because it's impossible. Now there's no way to ever test that. Versus the players that stick around a little too long, their legacy gets a little tarnished. It's like a comedian who has the crowd and then stays on stage 2 minutes too long, and then you're having a completely different conversation about who they were, and their legacy is totally different. And that's what. So Koufax, you're right, may not have the numbers of some of these guys, but he has the mystique and the dominance. Well, albeit for a short period of time, he left at his peak. So I think that makes a big difference in how he's viewed historically.
Yeah.
Unless you're Aaron and you don't put him on your Mount Rushmore.
Right. Aaron's
Santana's 5-year WAR, if you compare it to Koufax, is only like 5 less.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
That is a pretty amazing comparison.
So I will tell you, he was left off in mine too, and he was an honorable mention. I got his 64.
Oh, that's a great one too.
And then of course I'm going to show this because I love them. There's my Aurora Vision 64 Aurora Vision.
I've never even seen that one.
It's a beautiful image, absolutely beautiful image. I love this thing.
Yeah,
and very affordable. And then I do have a couple. I have a post of his that I didn't feel like digging through, so I found this while I was digging through binders. I've got another modern mosaic, if you will. Beautiful image. So those are the 3 that I grabbed for him.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, that Aurora Vision, you could probably pick that up for $20 if that's an image that interests you. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I didn't know that existed. That's great.
Yeah. There's a ton of great images on that. I pump it because I got into it from Rick Vintage Oddball Cards showed the maze about 1.5 years ago, and I started digging into it. It's a 16 record. They're records. It's a 16 record set, and then I've learned a little bit more. 64 is a 16 record set. They did them in 62, but they're all the same images minus 3 players. So there are image variations in 62, and it's Jim Gentile. God, how do I not know this? Mickey Mantle and Rocky Calavito. So once you get those 3 image variations from 62, you technically have all 19. So it's a small set. And actually, those are the most expensive ones. Like the Gentile and the Calavito are the most difficult to find. They're probably more expensive than the Mantle variation because you can find the Mantle variation.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, so now we've got Josh Show 2. You're up then, right?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll pick my 3rd, since I've got 2 of my Mount Rushmore guys represented.
Yeah, because I think I've gotten 3 of them represented. I did Carlton, Smallman and Lefty. Okay, yeah, I've got 3.
I'm gonna guess this is who you said you left off. That is a good Carlton comp.
It's almost identical.
Well, there's 2 really, in different ways, but I think this is the most direct. So I will guess that you were going with the big unit.
No, it was not the big unit.
It was not.
No, it was not.
Okay, so 101.1 WAR, 303 and 166. 3.29 ERA. So, I mean, the ERA even is pretty darn in the ballpark of Carlton.
So the so just so that I'm clear, the big unit's on your Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Okay. But that's not who I was thinking of.
So I'm just looking. I was like comparing him 5 Cy Youngs to 4, which is why I kept him on and took Carlton off.
Right.
4,875 strikeouts, insane. 37 shutouts, 100 complete games, and for being modern, he has this like Marlboro variation on the Fleer.
Right.
So I've got that thing, and then because I don't just do regular weird stuff, I have to find really weird stuff. Did the old Donruss the Rookies.
Yep.
Which again, prepping for this, I ordered that. It was like $9 or something. Like, you can't get this.
So I got to pick up some more Randy Johnson. Let me
a goofy Panini sticker.
Yes, those are cool. Actually, I like those.
I love some good Expos stuff too.
Yeah.
And then actually being from Indiana, I figured I'd go with the minor league Indianapolis.
That's cool.
Randy Johnson card, and that's cheap. That's like $5. That's nothing. So
right.
Just kind of cool. So Randy Johnson, super modern for me, but.
So I will tell you that he is my 4th one. So now all my 4 are complete. Randy made my list.
Okay.
So there we go. It's Topps rookie.
Yeah.
Then we've got the 2001 variation to celebrate 50 years. They did rookie cards in gold.
Nice.
I do have a bunch of his 90s, and so a ton of stuff that you'll see here. That's a skybox. This is a black diamond, upper deck black diamond. Oops. And then a couple league leaders from Topps.
Nice.
Cool thing about these is if you flip them over, it's got another player, and this one happens to be Pedro. This is a different lead leaguers. It's strikeouts in ERA, but it's the same 2 guys in that year. Pedro and Randy. And then lastly, I've got the impact. So
Nice.
He's number 4. His numbers, if you look at them, I thought were a little bit better than Carlton's, right? I mean, in comparison here, 101 WAR to 90 WAR, similar, same amount of wins. Same amount of Cy Youngs, 1 more than Carlton, but the person that I was thinking of, we'll see. You have 1 more to show, right?
I do.
So I'm gonna wait till we'll save it to the end till I tell you who it is. So,
Okay.
But yes, you guys have hit my top 4. So now it's you guys. I think we have 1 more from Josh, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't see how you can leave Randy Johnson off this list. So he was definitely on my list. Just a force to be reckoned with, right? 6'10". There'd never been anybody like that in baseball. And what I thought was interesting about him is having to learn how to function at that height and find the strike zone and find his control, and how he matured and learned from some of the greats like Nolan Ryan, where how he kind of improved and perfected his craft. So he literally was, I mean, one of the most dominant and feared pitchers of all time, and just like unhittable. I mean, a strikeout machine. And next to Nolan Ryan, he's got the 2nd most strikeouts in history, and he had 300 strikeouts 6 different times. Did he have 400 one year? I feel like he may have even had.
I didn't see.
No, maybe he didn't hit that number, but he had.
He did. That was on Facebook. He did counting playoffs.
Okay. Counting playoffs, maybe that was it. Yeah. And so, yeah, and now he's got a second life as like a sports photographer, which is really interesting. So you'll see him on the sidelines of these games taking photos, which is like, oh, that's Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
I pulled this from a pack when I was 10 years old.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Upper deck, 89 upper deck. And then these were some other ones growing up that I had. This one's a little rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I thought I had 1 more. Maybe not. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. I didn't have a whole lot. But I've always had this card. I've always kind of kept this card around, which I love the 89 upper deck.
Oh yeah. I could have pulled 50 of his cards, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna.
One of the most overproduced sets in history, but still a lot. So yeah, I mean, he's just a powerhouse.
Yeah.
A couple side notes on him. I had a buddy of mine who played AA ball and came up through the Expos organization, and he came up with Randy. and played with him in Double-A a little bit, and told me what powerhouse he was. Now my buddy had a cannon for an arm. He was older than me. Had a cannon for an arm, and he openly said I had zero control. And the funny story about this is, so he worked in the same industry I worked in. I'm in the printing industry. We met through the printing industry at my very first job, and several years later, my wife and I, girlfriend, now wife at the time, we went to a independent baseball game, Schaumburg Flyers. It was an independent team.
I've been there.
Yeah, and at the time, the coach was Ron Kittle. So I'm a big, White Sox guy. Ron Kittle was the coach, and my wife and I are sitting down the first baseline, and the bullpen is off to the right, and there's a pitcher pitching with his back turned to me, and it looked like my friend. And so I kind of walked down there, and I yelled, "Hey, Joe!" His name is Joe. I yelled, "Hey, Joe!" And he turned around and he smiled, and he waved me down to the bullpen. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I tried out for the Schaumburg Flyers." Now, he's much older at the time. And he's like, "And I made it." And I said, "What?" I said, "Well, do you have a job?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm still working." He was still in the industry, the printing industry. He's like, "I take vacation days for away games." And he had a side gig. He was pitching in an independent league. And 10 minutes later, he was sitting down in the dugout, and him and Kittle were on the stoop chatting. And I'm like, that's just crazy. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. The other fun story is, and Aaron probably knows this. You might not know this, Josh. Randy Johnson plays drums, and he's a huge Rush fan.
Yeah.
And Rush is my favorite band of all time. So I think he was on his tour of retiring. I think he was in Canada, and they gave him a replica set from Neil Peart, the drummer of Rush.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But wait, which member of Rush is a huge collector? Like they're
Geddy
big
Lee, the bass player and the lead singer. Yeah. So he donated a good portion of his autographed balls to the Negro League Hall of Fame in Kansas City.
Oh wow!
So I was in Kansas City. I go there quite often, and I was there about a year ago. I went to the Negro League Hall of Fame, and they're all on a wall, and it actually says donated by Geddy Lee. So I had to take a picture.
That's very cool.
It's like my two favorite things, Rush and baseball.
Yeah, right.
Perfect. So yeah, he's a
big
big collector. Yeah. Season ticket holder. He's when they show Blue Jays games, he sits. You'll always see him there. He's their Taylor Swift. So
nice.
They always show him. So
that's awesome.
It's nice to look at as Taylor Swift, right?
Oh sure, his hair's as long as it used to be.
He actually smiles now. That's definitely an improvement from his
right.
Definitely didn't smile back then.
So did you get all 4 of yours, Josh?
Yes, I believe.
You got Lefty?
So. Yep. I got Lefty, I got Sandy, I got
Randy,
and I got
Warren
Spahn. Yeah, that's
right. So there's only one left, and it's you.
Dang. All right. Well,
you're still deciding.
I honestly, I had 4 people that I was gonna potentially put in this spot. Steve Carlton was one, but I decided to bump him.
Right.
There's 2 guys with lower WARs that I think were extremely dominant, probably more dominant in their peak, and I'll not vote for them. I'm going to take the other guy because I think I do factor in like person. Like his career was amazing. I think he played 17 years. He had 1 year less than 14 wins. 8 21 years. I mean, just his stats were baffling, but it's partly the era that he played in. So it's an older time guy. Is that who you're thinking of?
What's his WAR? Is it almost identical to Carlton's?
It's in the 90s. Yeah. Low 90s.
That's I'm pretty certain that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And the other cool thing, so Connie Mack spoke when he passed and basically said, I should have documented it, but there was just nothing bad you could say about him as a family man, as a person, as a teammate, as a generous human being. There was nothing you could say bad about him. And grew up, his nickname is from half an hour from where I live right now. So I know Josh has seen these cards because he said that's on his list, but Gettysburg Eddie. So the E95 is epic. Absolutely love that.
I love that.
Josh,
I really like it better than the T206. Not like I'd have a T206 anyway, but
Yeah,
I like the color on that. I like the green more than the blue, but it's fantastic. That's a good
back
one.
checklist is solid. So yeah, it's a cool card. It really is. I was glad I picked that up, and that was, I want to say I saw that on eBay, and I reached out to the guy, and he said, I can't do anything more on price. I'm like, it's just a little too high for me. He's like, if only you were on this other website. So I went to the other website and bought it there. Sorry, eBay.
Well, he tipped his own hand then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was definitely guiding me there. But yeah, it was what is it? My slabs or whatever.
My slabs.
My slabs. Yeah. So he's like, if only we were on my slabs, that would be so much better.
That's gone now, isn't it? Is that website gone? Is it still around?
I think
I
so.
thought one of them one of those bigger sites shut down.
Oh,
maybe,
really?
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Maybe it did. Yeah, I don't know.
You might be right. I haven't been there and probably since I bought Eddie Plank, so I'm not sure. There's the other one that I think was
jeez.
Cool.
For the record, that's exactly who I was thinking of. And if I had one of his cards, I would have probably bumped Carlton, just like you did. Wars are almost identical. 90.9, 90.2. Wins 129. Eddie 126. His ERA is much lower. His ERA was 2.35. 3.22. I mean, their numbers were like right there.
Yeah.
And had I had an Eddie Plank card, I would have went that route. Which also means now I need to get an Eddie Plank card.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that means.
Well, and so I have a few others, but they're brutal.
So what?
That's cool.
But when your budget is, I mean, you can't find it.
Right.
But you take a rough pour and it's more.
90s, yeah, those are great. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a fun one. And then the other, that's an E91B. And then I've got an E93 as well. That's
the E91Bs, aren't they where it's like several or same image for several different players?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly, but I think the character of him is part of what I get drawn in when I decide who I want to collect. It's.
Yeah. I think the trouble with trying to collect Eddie Plank is the cost for a lot of those cards that you've shown, even in ones, are
expensive.
Trauma cards. So, but they're fantastic cards.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that's the fun of this. So in my head, because Aaron's on, I'm like, all right, so I know he's going to have an Eddie Plank card. I'm not going to be able to show one. He can show it. And then I'll bump Carlton to the 4 spot.
That's smart. Yeah.
No, that's good.
One of those great cards for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Plank is, those last 3 aren't comma cards. Those are hundreds for sure. They're not commas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The first 2 are commas, but the last 3 are manageable. They're probably halfway to a comma because they're rough. So
what?
Yeah, if you want them pretty, then they're commas. But
right. Good
point. I'd rather have it pretty. Pretty is in the eye of the beholder to me.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I'd take it ungraded. Even I don't even need it
always
at that point in time.
The challenge for every collector, like if you like, and I'm guilty of this. Like I'm trying to wait around for the perfect example and the perfect centering and something, and I'm like, well, you could be waiting for years to find that perfect card that you want, and then miss out on all these other great cards. And then you're going to pay a premium. So
right,
I gotta convince myself, talk myself out of collecting like that, because sometimes I get in a space where I'm, it's very exclusionary to collect like that. I know some people do, but it's gotten worse. Dylan Double D with the centering craze and everything. Now I look at a card and I'm like, oh, now I want to find the perfectly centered, and it's just hard.
I can show you hundreds of uncentered cards in my collection.
And I have a bunch in my collection too.
Yeah, my whole thing is having the card. If I can get a pretty, I'm going to get the prettiest example I can for what I want to pay for the card.
Right.
So, in looking at some of those Eddie Plank cards, if some of them are halfway to a comma, that would 100% be my route. And I'd be thrilled with that. That'd be awesome. But I guess I have a ton of honorable mentions, but I'll let you guys rattle some off. Did you want to show some, Josh? You have any honorable mentions?
Let's do it. Before we do that, we're going to do the mystery honorable mention.
Oh yeah.
You're going to guess who this player is. Okay, this player career WAR of 19.6, record of 87 and 108.
19.6 career WAR.
ERA of 4.25, 888 strikeouts, a WHIP of 1.433, and this may give it away. He threw a no-hitter against the Indians in 1993.
David Wells
aren't spectacular, but something about this player is spectacular. What makes him spectacular?
Jim Abbott.
What's that?
Oh
Jim
my
Abbott.
God, did you get it?
Abbott. He's born without a right hand. I mean, come on.
That's impressive.
That's to throw a no-hitter without a right hand.
That hint you gave was
right. That had to be it.
I'm like Craig Lefferts. I like.
Yeah. Right. Well, I was thinking wasn't. I thought David Wells, when he threw his perfect game, was still drunk, so that's why I rattled him.
Right, he probably was. I mean, to have that kind of, like, even I was thinking about this, even trying to field the ball, trying to switch your glove, all of those complex motions when you're pitching, when you're fielding, to just do that without a right hand and be as dominant as he was, and to throw a no-hitter. I mean, come on. That's just
an awesome pick.
That's a fantastic overcoming adversity and on the highest level. So
yeah,
I thought he was worthy of an honorable mention.
Well, and Three Finger Brown became an advantage because it allowed him to throw the ball differently. Abbott had no advantage. His was purely disadvantage.
No advantage, exactly. Yeah. He even managed some hits here and there, which I don't know how you hit in the majors.
Right.
So that was one of my honorable mentions. And then my other one, career record of 305 wins, 203 losses, 25 shutouts, 3.54 ERA, 2,607 strikeouts, 1.314 WHIP, 10-time All-Star, 2 Cy Youngs, got a World Series MVP in '95 and 1 championship. And that was...
And he's also a hell of a hockey player.
Hell of a hockey player. Tom Glavine.
Tom Glavine. He's got to make everybody's honorable mention, right?
He's part of
not make mine.
Fantastic trio.
Yep.
He was great. I have just some pretty generic cards of his, but yeah, he was.
That was the only Glavine that I grabbed. I was digging, and I'm like, I'm not gonna start breaking up sets that I have. And like, I got to put this all back. I'm like, all right, I got. My biggest concern was just get a card, but the one shocker that I had that blew my mind is only having the one worn spot item being the Aurora Vision. So that I'm like, oh gosh, I got to go pick up some more, and I need to pick up some more Koufax because some of his stuff is very affordable. So
yeah,
for sure.
I'll rattle off a bunch. My first honorable mention is simply for a good friend of ours in the community, and that would be our friend Scott at Reindeer Studio. So I would be remiss if I didn't show a couple Don Mossy cards. I had to do that for Scott. Honorable mention because of his good looks. That's the only reason I feel those. One of my top honorable mentions obviously was Eddie Plank. Would have been on the list. Tom Glavine was another one. My third of my top 3 honorable mentions was Clayton Kershaw. Mm-hmm. So obviously still going right now, and we'll see. But he's sitting at about an 80 WAR, 210 wins. So I figured he definitely had to be up there as an honorable mention. And then a lot of these guys were sentimental picks, right? So I know Aaron kind of teased me in one of the texts. There's my Billy Pierce rookie.
Yeah.
And then there's my 52 Billy. And then another honorable mention up for the Hall of Fame. Up for the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah.
In the Veterans Committee, Tommy John. So I got his rookie card here as well. So
great card.
Yeah. So I think those were all of my honorable mentions. Yeah, I think that covers it. So, one more. Rest in peace. Right. Rest in peace. So you got to show Fernando. But that was it. So what else? Did you have any more, Aaron?
I'll toss a quick 3 and we'll call that list thorough. I think we agreed on 2 all the way across for sure, right? 3 all the way across?
Spawn, Lefty, and Randy.
Randy.
Right?
those are my three locks, and then after that we kind of had some discrepancy.
Yeah, those were my three, and then I went Carlton. Would have went. You and I would have matched up again, like the last episode. The only reason we didn't match up is I didn't have a card. So same reason this time.
And Koufax is funny because doing research, I started pulling all these lists, and Koufax was anywhere from like the one list is like 8th or 9th of best lefties, and the other one had him like undisputed number 1.
Yeah, a lot of lists have him undisputed number 1, which is like that untapped potential kind of argument. If you look at the numbers, it's hard to put him above some of these other guys.
Grove to me, actually. So this is really just to revisit Lefty Grove and slam dunk. I probably could have done an hour on Lefty Grove and said, just tear the rest of the mountain down. He's a beast.
Right.
He literally, when you look at highest average WAR per season for a starting pitcher, I think he's first.
Yes.
I pulled Walter Johnson. Walter Johnson 7.1. Grove is 7.2.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That is
his average year is insane.
Yeah, no, WAR and his ERA plus are the top for any left-handed pitcher, and I'm not sure about all pitchers, but yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah, he's monstrous. But the other ones I had on my list that, toss in Whitey Ford just to get consideration.
Yeah. He didn't make my list. I didn't even think of that.
And so doing the research, he had the lowest ERA. That's his Bowman rookie. And then I'll show the Yoo-hoo that I think Mangini wants
that's
this.
Awesome.
I'm gonna set that aside for Mangini, but he has the lowest post 1920 live ball era ERA for a starting pitcher. Period.
I didn't know that.
That was current as of 15, 20 years ago. And then the guy that's destroying that significant record is the guy you just showed. His ERA currently is 2.5.
Right.
So, Koufax is 2.76. Whitey Ford is 2.75, and Kershaw's sitting there at 2.5. Yeah.
And I think, we could, if you're talking modern ball players, there's a handful that are definitely a lock. I think he's one of them. I think on the fence is where does Greinke sit? Is he a Hall of Famer? I think Scherzer's a lock when we're talking pitchers.
Yeah.
I'm just talking pitchers in general.
Verlander's
a lock, definitely. And that's about it when I look, because now you look at the use of pitchers and the injuries and all the stuff they're going through. I mean, a lot of what these guys did, like the stats you can rattle off with Lefty Grove and the stats you can rattle off with Randy Johnson, I just don't see it happening long term. So that's just a different game. Well, is he on 2 Tommy Johns now? Is he on 2?
Yeah,
I think he's at 2. So I think he's gonna have one more go, and then he'll be designated hitter for the rest of his career, possibly.
Yeah. I had one other guy that gets overlooked, and he was in the running for my 4th spot.
He was on my list.
Carl Hubble. Yeah.
He was on my list.
Dangling that thing, but he's legit.
Yes, 100%. 2
MVPs.
I would say probably one of the most overlooked guys on this list we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, my honorable mentions were more heartfelt, but Hubble was right on that fringe of. I think I had 4 for the Mount Rushmore, 3 honorable mentions. He might have been the 4th honorable mention. He'd have been top 8 for me, right around there.
Yeah, and he's cool cards, affordable.
That's a great card.
Like that's super cool. This is like the impossible little 41 Gaudy set.
For multiple, then they're like 4 colors or something like that.
Yeah,
41 Gaudis.
Yeah, it's one of the.
Does that card come in multiple colors?
Yes.
Yeah, there's like 4 different. There's like 4 different colors for the 41 Gaudis,
which is crazy.
That's awesome. I have another honorable mention.
Yes.
Vandermeer, 2 consecutive no-hitters. That's
You're picking good ones, Josh. You got good ones.
Yeah.
Good.
And then everybody's favorite quirky.
Yeah.
Rube Waddell.
Rube he's there with Santana and Koufax for freakish, amazing peak, but short career. He was chasing fire trucks and wrestling alligators and stuff. He was really weird.
Right. He's got like a lot of Paul Bunyan-esque stories about him.
Right. Sure enough.
Yeah, he was super crazy. The other fans would distract him with like shiny objects in the stands, and he'd start walking off the field like he was.
Look at chicken.
Yeah,
Maybe it was a small case of ADHD before they recognized what that was, and he was just.
I mean, that sounds maybe a little more than just AD. It sounds like maybe he got some neurologic
Right.
or cognitive issues, but yet he was such an unbelievable athlete. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Well, I would say we covered the gamut pretty well, boys. I think we got a lot of cards out there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I did not expect to go through my whole list of contingencies there, but that worked out really well. I think we crushed Mount Rushmore on left-handed pitching.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So,
Great
and
episode.
once again, it's unarguable because we're correct. So
Yeah.
that's how it works. We're right. So
At least 3 spots. Spot 4 is up for debate.
The top 3 spots are hard to debate. If you're talking about numbers, that's very true.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Very cool.
All right, sir.
Thank
Well, I
you.
don't know. What do you want to sign us off? You can sign us off, and we'll call it an evening, I think.
Yeah, I think that's about as clear a actual correct answer as we can get. So 3 out of 4 locked in. Always invite folks to add to the comments, add to the discussion, and let us know what you think we got right. Our top 3 truly locks or not, and bring in any other ideas. What do we miss? Any other honorable mentions you want to include? And I think we'll see everybody next time for another fun episode of the Mount Rushmore Show.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, gentlemen.